Before we get started today, I just wanted to mention that Coffee Fest is happening in New York on November the 8th, 9th and 10th. If you are thinking about going, please do. It is so much fun. It is one of those coffee festivals or coffee trade shows, I guess, that is just really engaging. When I go, this time I'll be going as well to teach a class, but I'm going as the person who owns Elixir Specialty Coffee to the trade show, and I do a lot of business when I'm down there. So if you're thinking of going for business purposes, do it. You meet great people. It's super chill, super engaging, and you can use the code MAPITFORWARD to get 50% off your ticket. You can go to coffeefest.com and get that information today. So back to our discussion topic for today, the most common sales mistakes that people make or business owners make in the coffee industry with small businesses. I want to start at this idea of metrics. And what metrics are the numbers that you check on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual or yearly perspective, excuse me, in order to gain a reference point and see how you're tracking. And while I'm sure that there are people that check what their POS sales numbers are, they're able to check what their product sales are on an hourly basis, there are other metrics that are really, really important that I know that there are a bunch of people that are not tracking. So POS systems are great for cafe owners who are small business owners because your POS system spits out a bunch of analytics. So analytics, metrics, measurements, insights, these are all different ways of saying the same thing and referring to the same thing. It depends on how you encounter them. So understanding your metrics are going to tell you the story of what your concept, brand, and marketing are starting to have an actionable insight into. We spoke about this garden that we're talking about. Your analytics are going to be the thing that really give you an understanding, like an aerial shot of what that garden is doing. And so if you are collecting your analytics on a regular interval basis and writing them down, I have a spreadsheet. I set aside time every month where I track the exact same numbers and put them in a spreadsheet and analyze the difference of where I've gone from and where I've come to. Now, analytics are going to be different based on how you're building your garden and what you're looking at building. So, for example, if your focus is to grow the amount of kilos that you roast every month, you need to be able to have tracked what the sales are that are allowing you to do that. So, not roasting more coffee is one thing, but having something to do with that roasted coffee is an equally important thing to do. So tracking the kilos that you're roasting and the amount of sales that you're doing will give you an insight into how you can move forward and where your pain points are with going in the direction that you want to. But the important thing that I wanted to mention about metrics is you've got to understand what it is that you want to know and learn and figure out how to measure it or track it. Now, the way that you can do this, and I get every one of my clients to do this, ask yourself, what are the 10 questions I want to answer about my business? And then when you've answered those 10 questions, ask yourself another set of questions. I do this for myself every year. I start with 10 questions. Once I've answered those 10 questions, I move to the next 10 questions. An example of the kinds of questions I have on my list this year is, what are the keywords that that bring people to my Elixir website? So what are the keywords that work well for me? That is a sales and marketing strategy. That leads me to one of the next things. Understanding where your customers are coming from. So we've spoken about the metrics. Now we want to go on to where our customers come from. You won't know how to sell if you don't know how to find your customers. And we spoke about marketing yesterday. This is important because if you can't figure out where your customers are coming from, you won't be able to figure out how to bring more of them. So you've identified who your customers are through the process of defining your concept and your brand, and your marketing is used to access those people. Now you've got to figure out the conversions that keep them coming. For me and Elixir, not only do we have a wholesale program, but this year our focus is with regards to direct to consumer. So a lot of effort, and we're working on bringing on board AI to make this happen, is how do we figure out how to bring people to our store? It's a virtual store, but it's still a store. You need to do the same thing with your brand. How do we figure out how we get more people through the doors, whether it's a physical door or a virtual door? How do we get people to show up to our roastery? How do we get people to want to serve our coffee in their cafes? It is super important, and not enough people do it, to be very proactive in finding how you get these customers. So this leads me to the next issue. Most small business owners expect customers to just turn up. I see it again and again and again, that people put all this effort into starting their business, learning how to roast coffee really well, learning how to brew coffee. They have these beautiful fit outs, or even average fit outs, but they've just worked really hard to DIY it the whole way. And then when I say to them, so how are you going to get customers lining up for the day that you launch? And they're like, oh, no, we're going to do that afterwards. And my comment to that is, but afterwards is too late because you're already racking up expenses. If we go back to the metrics we were talking about, another important metric there is, what is my runway? So that when you do open the doors, what's the financial runway that you have where you can not be making any money before you're going to go out of business? That's an important metric, not only to understand and track, but to move. You want to either increase that runway by getting more capital, or get to no longer be dependent on the capital that you had, the starting capital that you had, because you're generating a profit already. So you don't want to just be generating a revenue, you need to be generating a profit. Because once you're generating a profit, you're not having to eat into the runway that you've created for yourself, or your starting capital. The next mistake that I see people making, and I am super guilty of this myself, is not prioritizing sales because you're working in the business rather than on the business. And this was a really hard growth step for me, purely because it's one of those things where you're like, well, what if I'm not very good at sales? What if I'm not very personable? What if I'm this? What if I'm that? Business is here to teach you not only all that you are, but all that you will be. It's there to help you push through pain barriers. So either you step into doing the sales yourself, or you use a part of that runway that you have, that financial runway, to find other mechanisms to do that. And for me, that's the process that we're going through right now, is finding AI that can help us boost our sales efforts online. And that's how we're attacking our direct-to-consumer business. It was a really difficult decision to make because it terrifies the shit out of me. And You'd think I'd be better at making decisions like that by this point, but we all struggle with something. We all have things that are hard. And for me, it's stepping into the sales realm, I guess. It's not the selling part of it. It's the putting myself front and center of the sales that's a problem for me. Okay, we've got time for a couple more. The next thing, and I guess this is the best thing to lead into from the last thing, is your mindset. A lot of people in the coffee industry seem to feel weird about selling because they feel that they're imposing themselves on other people. I see this again and again and again with clients. They feel that they don't want to be too pushy. They don't want to force people to buy their products. You are in business. You need to align your mindset with the business capitalistic mindset. I'm not saying I consider myself a conscious capitalist, so I'm not saying be ruthless or be aggressive or any of those kinds of things. Go and find people who align with what your product is. After all, that's what the process of understanding the concept and doing the brand brief is for, so that you can understand who they are. Then you've got to do the 10% at the end, which is go and find them. And so prepare your mindset for the fact that this is an important, if not the most important, closer for your business. You can have a great business structure and foundation, but if you're not creating revenue, it means nothing. One more. Leaving money on the table. We've all done it. I am so guilty of doing this. You leave money on the table, and what that means is that you'll go and you'll do an amazing presentation and you'll give out the little, for example, let's say that you want to sell roasted coffee and you've decided that one of the ways that you're going to sell roasted coffee, and this is one of my clients is doing this right now, you decide to meet with local real estate agents who like to give roasted coffee subscriptions as gifts to their new home owning clients. You go to the presentation, you have gift boxes for all the real estate agents that turn up. They love it. You brew the coffee, you do it all well. Then what you need to make sure that you do is you find a way to capture people's email addresses and then have a strategy for following up afterwards. So if you don't, you're going there and doing this amazing presentation. Everybody loves your coffee. But if you're not capturing a way to then convert those sales, you are leaving money on the table. And you don't want to do that. But too many of us do it far too often. Me, number one, guilty of that. And I've become much better at not doing that these days. But it's all a journey. Sales is like leadership. It's one of those things that you need to work really hard at getting better at it. There are some people that are just born salespeople. I haven't met too many born salespeople that go on to own businesses in the coffee industry, but there are some out there, and you can become somebody who gets really good at sales, and you don't have to be an asshole to do it. On that wonderfully positive note, we're just about to start a podcast with Steve Green and Angie Davis from Mill City Roasters, and they are doing killer business. They're doing great with regards to sales and things like that. So, and it'll be a really fantastic conversation. I hope you guys get to join us. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.